That makes it perfect for the Red Bull free diving competition they have there every year. Later this summer, they put a diving board on top of that building, and crazy people jump 93 feet down into the harbor. No, they're actually really talented divers. It's a very cool competition to watch. We're passing Anthony's Pier 4 restaurant, this wooden building to the right side of our boat. Some of the best food in Boston Harbor. When it first opened, it was the top grossing restaurant in the city. And the food is great, but that is most likely due to a very smart marketing move that Anthony had when he opened the restaurant. He gave every cab driver in Boston a free lunch. So what do you think the first recommendation of their passengers was for a good place to eat? Anthony's Pier 4. It's still a great place to eat. Fantastic food there. We just passed again into the Seaport District, cruising by Commonwealth Pier to the right side of the boat. Building on top of Commonwealth Pier is Boston's World Trade Center. And the last pier that we can see out to the right now is South Boston Fish Pier, the oldest fish pier in the U.S. It was built in 1914, and it is still an active fish pier to this day. So stern draggers assemble here, and they go 150 miles east out to Georges Bank and bring their catch back here to be weighed, processed, and distributed. That's what a fish pier is, a fish processing pier. Out to the right now, we can see the mouth of the inner harbor and the outer harbor islands. There are 34 outer harbor islands. Together they make up the outer harbor islands, national parks and recreations areas. Many of them are accessible to the public by ferry boat. The public transportation in Boston here has ferries that will run you right out there. Great way to spend an afternoon. Beyond those islands is open North Atlantic Ocean as far as the eye can see. The next piece of land you'd hit would be Portugal, which you cannot see from Boston Harbor. Some people get out there and try to squint their eyes and make out the coastline. It's 3,200 miles away. I assure you, you cannot see it, but it is there. You just set sail into Boston in about 2 weeks. You'd go through the Azores and arrive on the coast of Portugal. All the land to the right of us is Logan International Airport. Also built mostly on landfill. They join together 3 islands with about 2,400 square acres of dirt for the construction of Logan. You can see the Hyatt Hotel to the right of us. The glass elevator shaft on the side of the building is meant to resemble a lighthouse on the shores of Nantucket, a little island off the coast of Cape Cod. Some nice architecture there. To the left of that, you can see the aluminum triangular vents of the Ted Williams Tunnel and the 2-legged Volpe Control Tower at Logan Airport. And when they built Logan, they joined it to East Boston, which is all the land to the right of us now. Before East Boston was connected to the mainland, it was an island called Noddle's Island. It was pretty much Boston's equivalent to Ellis Island. And it was the site of the old immigration hall, which is no longer standing, where many European immigrants were processed into the U.S. during the 1840s. Now, if you look directly abeam of us, you can see the bow of a gray ship that says 793. That is a World War II Fletcher-class destroyer. It's kind of being eclipsed by one of those wars. That's the Cass and Young. It's the last U.S. naval vessel to be hit by kamikaze pilots in World War II. It was hit by 2 planes, badly damaged it. They repaired it at the dry dock of the Charlestown Navy Yard and took it over here and put a bow out the waterfront at East Boston. The large red-hulled vessel that we're now passing, that says Nantucket on the side, up towards our bow to the right, is a Nantucket lightship. It's LV-112. Those boats are floating lighthouses. They were stationed out in the open North Atlantic Ocean, where it's pretty much impossible to build a traditional lighthouse. They get very severe storm systems out there. They get nor'easters. These are storm systems that will bring the waves up to 70 feet and the winds up to 110 miles per hour. So if you can picture yourself as a crew member on that boat, seeing a 70-foot wave break over the bow, it's not an occupation I'm sure everyone would sign up for, but it was necessary. Unfortunately, a lot of the sailors got washed out to sea. The boats themselves, many of them got smashed up on the rocks beyond repair. But LV-112 has been wonderfully restored. It's now a floating museum that's open to the public on the waterfront here in East Boston. We're now passing the park here in Eastie. If you look up towards our bow to the right, I say Eastie, that's the nickname for East Boston. In Boston, you just tack a Y on the end of anything, and that's the nickname for the area. For this park here in East Boston, you can see the creative naming process at work. It's a park on a pier called Pierce Park. There's a nice monument at the end of Pierce Park. It sort of looks like a spaceship, that round monument with the point on top. That's a monument to Donald Mackay, who was a master shipbuilder in Boston Harbor. He built clipper ships, which were cargo ships called the Greyhounds of the Sea. He built one on the shores of the Mystic River in 1851 named the Flying Cloud. Set the world record for fastest voyage departing from the coast of New York going all the way around the tip of Cape Horn, South America, and arriving on the shores of San Francisco in just under 90 days. A remarkably fast voyage. The record remained unbroken from 1851 to 1979, when it was broken by a modern racing craft. So that stands a nice testament to the craftsmanship of McKay. We have several monuments to tribute to him in the harbor. We're passing these abandoned wooden cargo shipping piers here in East Boston. The train tracks are still on this one, right to the right of us. So just like Fan Pier in the mid-1800s, large cargo ships would come into the inner harbor, pull right up there, and unload right onto train tracks, or freight trains, excuse me. And the tracks are still on that wooden pier. This next one we're going to pass, they cemented over the tracks, has been fortified. They fortified this pier so vessels like the Sea Hunter can dock here. That's the big blue boat to the right of us. That is a treasure hunting ship. It's a very successful treasure hunting ship. They recently recovered $3.2 billion worth of platinum bars off the ocean floor. Right off the shores of Martha's Vineyard, another island off the coast of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. There's a debt that was owed to the United States during World War II. It was being carried over from Russia on an Allied vessel. And it was sunk by a U-boat right off the shores of the Vineyard. So there's a debate that's underway over who's going to get to keep the funds. The U.S. government is claiming them as their own, as wartime funds. The Sea Hunter is implementing the finders keepers rule, understandably so. But since they're wartime funds, it's this gray area. Usually maritime law would dictate the Sea Hunter's entitled to most of the funds, but it's a debate that's yet to be resolved. They've been here since they made the find 3 years ago. Their home base is in Casco Bay, Portland, Maine. This rusted wooden float in the water to the right of us is the old East Boston penny ferry landing. In 1833, they built a passenger ferry. It cost a penny. Ran across the harbor. It's a very affordable way to get back and forth from East Boston to downtown. They made it so affordable because it would carry a lot of the immigrants over, the Irish immigrants that accounted for a lot of the manual labor for the construction of South Boston. But they stopped running it in the early 1950s, really around the advent of the automobile. More cars were being produced in the United States, more people started to drive into Boston, and as opposed to building bridges that went over the harbor, we dug tunnels under the harbor. This was part of the Big Dig project. We passed the Ted Williams Tunnel back by the airport, named after famous Red Sox player, the splendid Splinter. And we're about to go over, actually right now we're going over the Sumner and the Callahan tunnels, 65 feet underneath the hull of our boat. We'll see the crown accomplishment of the Big Dig project, the Zakin Bridge, in a moment, later in the tour, going over the Charles. But we just passed what remains of yet another abandoned cargo shipping pier. And this is the point in the tour when people really start to wonder, why is there no development on East Boston's waterfront? It's pretty vacant. There's not a lot going on over here, and it's a good question. And it's really because of those abandoned cargo shipping piers.